The diagram ABCD is a rhombus with AC equals 6 root 3 centimeters and BD equals 6 centimeters. Let's show that the rhombus has side length 6. Okay, for a rhombus, we know that the diagonals are going to bisect and they're going to be perpendicular. So because AC is 6 root 3, that means half of it is 3 root 3. And then BD is 6, that means it's going to be 3 and 3. And so each one of these is going to be a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And if we want to find a side length, we can just pick any of these 4 triangles to figure it out. So I'll just pick this one up here. So this is 3 root 3. And we could just use Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse. It's 3 squared plus 3 root 3 squared equals c squared. It's 9 plus 9 times 3. This is 36 equals c squared, so c has to equal 6. So that means each side length has length 6 centimeters. Now for part 2, if A is the coordinate 0, 0 and B is 3 root 3 comma 3, let's find the coordinates of C. So let's draw this out. So this one's A, and this is 3 root 3 comma 3. We know that the length AC is 6 root 3 and length BD is 6. So we're going to call this coordinate right here x sub c, y sub c, and d will be x sub d, y sub d. Now the diagonals are going to intersect at the midpoint. So this intersection is the midpoint of AC, the midpoint of BD. So if we look at the midpoint of AC, that's just going to be the average of the coordinates of A and C, which is just xc over 2 comma yc over 2. And then if you want to look at the midpoint of BD, that's just going to be the average of the x and y coordinates of B and D. So B is 3 root 3 comma 3, and then D is xd comma yd. So we look at that. So the two midpoints have to be equal to each other. So this is the midpoint of AC, and this is the midpoint of BD. Okay, so now we know that AC, the length of AC is 6 root 3. So if we look at the distance formula, so the distance between A and C, that's basically going to be the square root of xc squared plus yc squared, and that's going to equal 6 root 3. So we can square both sides to eliminate the square root and have xc squared plus yc squared equals 108. And then we can find the midpoint of BD, or sorry, the distance of BD. That's just going to be the square root of the difference of the x squared plus the difference of the y squared. So that's 3 root 3 minus xc over 2 squared plus 3 minus yc over 2 squared. And that's going to, well, okay, this one they actually just did the midpoint. So they said that if the midpoint is xc over 2, yc over 2, then the distance between B and the midpoint is 3. It's half of 6. So that's what they have here. Okay, so then I could just square both sides and then get this equation. So basically I have two equations. I have xc squared plus yc squared equals 108, and then this equation. So I could just use both of these equations to solve for xc and yc. So first I'm going to work with the one on the right here. So equation number 2, I'm going to expand it. So 3 root 3 minus xc over 2 squared. That's this part. And then 3 minus yc over 2 squared. That's going to equal 9. And here we can rearrange something. So notice that you have xc squared over 4, yc squared over 4. That's going to be x squared c plus y squared c over 4. And we know that x squared plus y squared, that's 108. So this whole thing would just be 108 over 4. So that's what we have there, which that's just going to be the 27. Okay, so we have 36 minus 3 root 3 times x sub c minus 3 times y sub c plus 27 equals 9. And then 36 plus 27 gives us 63. So then I could just rewrite it as 63 minus 3 root 3 x sub c plus, or minus 3 y sub c equals 9, and then I can subtract both sides by 9 and then throw the xc's and the yc to the other side. Okay, so that's what we have over here, and then we can divide both sides by 3 to get 18 equals root 3 times xc plus y times, or yc. Okay. And so now we can solve for y sub c. That's just 18 minus square root of 3 times x sub c. And we're going to substitute it into the equation. X squared c plus y squared c equals 108. So plug that in for y sub c. And then the goal here is to solve for x sub c. So this is what you get when you expand it, simplify it further, and then end up with 4 x squared c minus 36 square root 3 x sub c plus 216 equals 0. And then this one you could just use quadratic formula. To use a quadratic formula, you end up with x equaling 6 root 3 or x equaling 3 root 3. So you get two answers, but obviously one of them is going to work. So if you go over here, y sub c equals 18 minus root 3 times x sub c. So if you plug in 6 root 3, this is going to give you 0. And clearly, y sub c cannot be 0. That's clearly greater than 0. So we'll eliminate that answer choice. So we'll eliminate the 6 root 3. So that means x sub c equals 3 root 3. And then plugging it in, we get y sub c equals 18 minus root 3 times 3 root 3, which is 9. So then the center is just 3 root 3, comma 9.